someone on the edge, someone that's reading InfoWars, someone that's looking at trying to figure out what's going on with Europeans, but at the same time is turned off by the language of a storm front or the language of your local white nationalists, because they're still in a demoralized state. I'm drawing down the arms. In other words, they're putting their arms down to listen to something like this. It's pretty unique. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. If you're going to do stuff the same way, you're going to get the same results. Some like me can get results because I'm not going to do things like you've been doing things. But, you know, if you're a white nationalist and you're listening to this and saying it's cool, well, I already have you. I already have you. You're already in the channel. You're already listening to all your stuff. If you're a Flea War of the Me type, one of those undercover lovers, you're listening to this, well, I already have you. You're already out there. I'm looking for something particular. I'm looking for a Plato, and a Plato is not going to be someone listening to those channels or someone turned off by those channels. But you must use a disarming language if someone has been demoralized under an armed language. In other words, if they're demoralized under race issues, well, you have to talk about it in a unique way. You have to draw them in. Now, I've been told it's positively evil that I'm using animals, because guess what? You've been moralized in regards to animals. Yeah, your little 5-year-old kid, he can't think of killing a white rabbit. He has no problems watching Terminator wipe out people by the thousands, but he has a problem killing a white rabbit. It's kind of funny stuff. Yeah, I've been told that it's evil what I'm doing. Well, that's fine. I know how to get results, but that's why I'm using a particular language for a particular reason. I'm using it to draw people in. Now, if it turns off your average, why don't you just talk about things directly? Because I'm not doing things directly. We're not doing things like you've seen things done before. No, that's already out there. You're already doing that. That's fine. But I have my reasons. I'm trying to lay that out for you in a roundabout way, but it's kind of common sense. If you're at a table and you're trying to talk about the color of a crime and this not getting through to anyone, it's because they're demoralized. Well, you can't talk about it that way. You got to go a different approach. Talking about the indigenous white rabbits of Europe becomes funny because I'm disarming it. I'm making it about animals. And no one, I mean, if you had a TV program about killing white people, a lot of people would find that funny. You know, you could watch one of these daytime talk shows like The View or something. I think that's a daytime talk show or a morning talk show. You make fun of white people, even the white people will laugh. You start talking about harming little white rabbits, well, no one finds that funny. Yeah, so, you know, you got to take a different approach to this, and most of it comes back to demoralization. You don't understand demoralization. Occidental Quarterly, the guy was talking about that he had a bunch of relatives and he was worried about them racially and everything else, making sure they had enough survival supplies, or maybe they needed a household shotgun and they were going to donate the money to make sure he'd defend his family, but they weren't really interested. Well, true information doesn't mean anything to them. The tragedy of the situation of demoralization is that the only way to wake them up is to be on a consistent message and let them respond. In other words, if you're in the area and you're saying, in your opinion, it's racist, you're just saying it because of white. Anti-racism is a code word for anti-white, and you're going over your talking points. If most people won't respond to that, they will on a subconscious level later on, but right away they won't respond to that. Some will. Now, if your cousin responds to that, well, you have something there. If he doesn't respond to it, you don't have anything. And it's kind of common sense. But demoralization, the tragedy of the situation of demoralization is you don't realize what's done to you until everything's leveled to the ground. They don't realize it. That's the tragedy of the situation. Yes, they won't realize it until the big boot hits them in the behind. And that is the tragedy of the situation. Most people, I lay it out time and time again. In fact, we're going to break out demoralization and put it on the page, because it's an important concept. If you understand anything from me, understand brainwashing. They will not get it. The only thing you can do is the basics, kind of like in Obama. You know, if you say, oh, yes, we can, and then people in your area respond, well, you can only go where the response is. You're wasting your time because maybe the Republicans, maybe they don't like Obama, maybe they're tuned out to the message. You understand that. When it comes down to race issues, it's very simple. It's virtually identical. But except you're dealing with a heavily demoralized population that's coming out, so some are going to respond. But if you're trying to convince someone of something, you don't understand. You don't understand what you're doing. Trying to convince someone is a waste of time. All you can do is stay on a consistent message. If you stay on a consistent message that's written by someone clever and understand how it works, it's devastating. It's devastating because you will get your point across to enough people. You will find those that bond together and then take it seriously. You know, if he would have been at this person from Occidental Quarterly would have been at a family reunion and stayed on a consistent message like ours or something similar, whatever. If he got a response and someone warm will respond to that, well, that's someone you could work with. The rest are done. They won't realize it until everything's leveled to the ground. Maybe they'll survive, maybe they won't. Maybe you won't even want them to survive. You know, I mean, you know, every family's got a lot of stupid animals in it, but that is the tragedy of the situation, of demoralization. True information will not mean anything from them. True information will not mean anything until it's done, until it's over with. If they're not getting it through their skulls now, well, it is what it is, isn't it? You just have to understand that. Talking about the color of crime, you don't understand demoralization. You don't understand brainwashing. That works. White nationalists eat that stuff up. They put it out there. They put it out on the dinner table for the relatives. Relatives just don't get it. Well, you know, the best thing any person in this struggle understands, if you could learn anything, I don't care what you do, understand demoralization, activity of Mebranaccia. If you don't understand that, you don't understand how education works. Maybe you've been reading those color of crime reports every year for 10 years. Maybe you're in a consistent trance, looking to do things a certain way. Well, everyone has a job to do. Everything's useful in front of you. Everyone has a job to do. Everyone has a place and a time. In the Lord of the Rings is something that it's an old book, but it's an interesting book. It's a good book. They wanted to kill Gollum. Yeah, you remember that little guy Gollum? They wanted to kill Gollum, but that big white wizard wouldn't let them. No, they said, you don't kill Gollum because he may have a role to play that you don't see yet. You know, and Gollum did have a role to play. At the end of that dark age, he danced into the fire with that ring, didn't he? Yeah, if they would have killed Gollum, they may have never gotten that ring into the fire, but he had a role to play. Everything is useful. Nature doesn't make mistakes, even if it looks like it did. Nature didn't make a mistake with Gollum. He was there for a reason. He was there to dance into the fire with that ring. That's his job, cosmically. On a cosmic level, I don't even think cosmically is a word, but on a cosmic level, that was his job. So don't think something's in front of you. You just have to look for a way to work with it. They looked for a way to work with Gollum. They looked for a way to use his energy to their advantage, for better or worse. And in the end, he danced in the fire with that ring. You need to start thinking in those terms. You're not using your big brains. So we're going to break out demoralization, and you're going to have a 20-minute segment or so on demoralization. You can listen to it 15. Get your white nationalists to listen to it 500 times, for heaven's sakes, because you can't convince people. That's why talking points work. You can't convince people to vote for Obama. You got to hit a consistent message and let them respond, and then talking points, so on and so forth. You're not going to convince people because if that talking point works, they'll do whatever you want to do, right? If you're listening to me and you like what I have to say, well, you're going to listen to more. But if you're responding to a consistent message, you are. I mean, you're there already. But if you're trying to sell someone that can't be sold, well, it's a waste of time. But you have to understand demoralization. You have to understand what you're up against. This is the end of another episode of Follow the White Rabbit. Follow the White Rabbit, again, is a game that will teach you practical politics. Practical politics is practical because it is non-voting, which makes it very, very practical. Conventional politics is voting politics or rule-based politics. And the ultimate, of course, is full-spectrum practical politics, engaging and taking down an opponent, a system, by any means necessary, within the rules, within the law, but never breaking them. And this is the end of another episode of Follow the White Rabbit. Thank you for listening.